had an encounter of my own when I was 3 or 4 years old. And that was kind of a catalyst for the rest of my life up to this point. I found the phenomenon fascinating. And at a really young age, I started collecting stories from family members and from friends. And as time went on, I started scouring newspapers for stories of otherworldly encounters, UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, things like that. But my fascination always was with extraterrestrial encounters. So in my mid 20s, I was looking at my bookshelf, my personal bookshelf, and I didn't have one book on UFOs in Maine. And it turns out that there wasn't one. There were a few books out that had some stories in them, but there wasn't one book solely dedicated to them. And for some dumb reason, I thought I'm the guy that's going to do that. So it took me about 6 years to write my first book, which was UFOs over Maine, that came out in 2014. And at that time, I was utilizing newspapers, MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and NUFORC, which is the National UFO Reporting Center. And I was utilizing reports from those agencies and from newspapers. And as time went on, and as I got deeper and deeper into the field, people started to come to me to share their stories. I think they knew, I don't know if it was my writing style or my personality or what, but people seemed comfortable in sharing their stories with me and would allow me to share their stories to the general public. And, for me at this point, it's a matter of, while the stories are fascinating, it's also a matter of like historical record, I feel. There's not a lot of people cataloging strange stories. I mean, there's tons of authors and researchers in my field, but generally speaking, it's not a wide known practice to catalog all these types of encounters.
So what qualifies as a UFO or UFO sighting?
Well, really, it's something that is either in the sky or on the ground that you cannot identify. Now, for quite some time, the acronym UFO has become synonymous with extraterrestrial. And even as a UFO author and researcher, I'm very quick to tell people that just because something is unidentified, it doesn't mean it's extraterrestrial. There could be drones, it could be military. You could be, I've had reports of people reporting helicopters. And when a helicopter at night and it has its spotlight on is flying towards you, that looks like a floating ball in the sky until it finally banks or turns or something. And then you can see the blinking taillight, not to mention the sound. But yeah, I guess that basically is what a UFO is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that especially now that we see drones more often, I could see that sort of being mistaken for something. It is something unidentified. So
sure, in the moment.
When people see something unusual in the sky, it is unidentified, whether it turns out to be a helicopter or a drone or something else. How do people generally report seeing a UFO?
I say these days, maybe even the last 5 years, maybe even longer, they go to social media. They either text a friend or go to social media. And it could be in some sort of Facebook group that's dedicated to strange happenings, or they're just putting it on their own personal page.
So we talked about official sightings to these two groups that you mentioned are down. Why do you think that is?
I think it's a bit, it might be twofold. The organizations have been around for a long time, but neither organization does very much to promote themselves as a place to report your UFO sightings. Within my world, within my circle of colleagues and friends that have an interest or even a passing interest in UFOs, we know of MUFON and NUFORC. However, there's a whole lot of people that have no idea that there are reporting agencies out there. So they're just taking their sightings to social media.
And that's where they end up. So it's more of just social media becomes a collection of
Yeah,
UFO sightings, but not necessarily all in one place. So
that's
as a
right.
researcher, I'm sure you're pulling a little here, you're pulling a little there, and how do you determine what is a credible report?
That's all that comes down to is talking to the person. If I can, I'd love to talk to them in person or virtually like this. I like to, see their body language, hear the tone in their voice, the look in their eye. But if that can't happen, which is understandable, I'm okay with even just messaging. But a phone call would be great as well for that tone of voice. However, for me to share somebody's story, it doesn't necessarily have to be credible. I would say about 75% of the people that I talk to, I'm not really sure if their story is true or not. But I would say around 20% of the people I talk to, I am convinced that they are convinced they saw something extraterrestrial or otherworldly. And the other 5% is people I just don't believe. And that's okay too.
Why is it important to track these sightings?
Well, I suppose that depends on who you ask. I mean, I know you're asking me right now, and I feel it's important as a matter of historical record. I think they are fascinating stories that some of the general public could latch on to and find fascinating as well and share with their families and friends. But there's others out there that want to know what the government is hiding from us, or there might be something more nefarious afoot. And while maybe some of that's true, for me, it's about capturing our own history. And instead of old trains or military, I'm into strange history.
Interesting. Okay. And what would you say to skeptics out there? I'm sure you talk to people all the time, given your what you do, of people who believe. But obviously, we all know there are many skeptics that think this is crazy talk. So, what do you say to the skeptics who might be watching this, saying, oh, "Okay, come on now"?
Yeah, I think that their opinion is valid too. Real simple. You do get some skeptics that are a little bit more foot in the dirt. I'm not budging from this opinion, and that's okay too. It's a little bit more frustrating to have an open dialogue with someone like that. But when it all comes down to it, you can believe whatever you want to believe, and it's okay with me.
Anything else that you would like to make sure we get across as we take a look at this story today? The idea that the fewer sightings in Maine.
Yeah, I think there's two things. There's actually a lot of sightings that are happening in Maine that are going unreported through official means. But sightings, if you look on social media, you'll find that they're way up. I don't have any numbers to back that up. It's just a matter of scrolling. And, as you scroll out of 20, 30 people through your feed, you're going to find one that has some sort of paranormal story or account of some sort. And the last thing is to look up. That's the only reason I got into this. I was looking up and I saw something that I couldn't explain.